Comic Book Hour. Stay tuned.
Welcome everybody to the Rick and Dave Comic Book Hour. I'm Rick.
I'm Dave.
And this is our 100th episode.
100.
So, this being our 100th episode, Dave and I have decided to do what, Dave?
We are going to review issues 100s. So, Rick and I, we dug up some issue 100s that we had and reread them since it's been a while since we read them. And first issue I'm going to share with you is Marvel Team Up number 100. And we have Spider-Man and the Fantastic Four teamed up in this one. And basically the story has a girl who has a mutant power to take over somebody's mind. And she takes over Spider-Man. And she has good intentions to rescue her family by using Spider-Man's abilities. So she kind of gets into your head and kind of becomes Spider-Man in a sense. And so she goes to try to rescue her family, and of course there's the bad guys, which happens to be her twin brother who has the same powers. So they battle, and then he uses the Fantastic Four and has Spider-Man versus the Fantastic Four there for a minute, and long story short, everybody sorts it all out, and bad guys lose. But it was a pretty good story. Had a backup story that I kind of enjoyed a little bit more. Had Black Panther and Storm, and it kind of told a tale of their first meeting when they were kids. So they apparently have known each other for a long time. So I enjoyed that story too. So this is a 75-cent cover
For a double-sized issue.
for a double-sized issue of Marvel Team Up number 100.
That was back in 1980.
Yep.
So, remember who wrote that book and who the artists were? Nope.
Not without opening it up and looking. I didn't know I was going to have to know that. Hang on a minute. I'll look.
I don't know either. I'm just asking.
I looked at that last when I read
Really
it.
no.
Oh, Chris Claremont, yes.
Well, then you can't go wrong with
Yeah,
this.
Chris Claremont wrote, and he wrote the backup story. I do remember that. And the main story is drawn by Frank Miller, and the backup story is drawn by John Byrne.
So I had two excellent artists on that book.
That's right.
So that's quite a bit for 75 cents. Two
Yeah.
artists for 75 cents.
Yeah.
You're not going to get better than that
Back in the day, eh?
back in the day. Interesting stuff.
So what do you got?
Well, I'm going to start with Daredevil 100. Written by Steve Gerber and art by Gene Colan. Everybody knows who Gene Colan is. If you're not, you shouldn't be watching this show. So, here it is. It's the 100th issue. Sucks. It does. It really sucks. This is interesting, though, because at the beginning, Black Widow and Daredevil, this is when Daredevil's living in San Francisco, okay?
Yeah.
You know the book's called, at this time the book is still called Daredevil and Black Widow.
Yeah.
Remember, that started back in the 80s, I believe, issue 80 something.
Okay.
But they're both coming back from New York, where Black Widow has just been accepted into the Avengers. So they're flying back in the Quinjet. And they're having this romantic, not romantic, but this
Having a soap opera moment.
soap opera moment here, where since she's going to be going back to New York, he's like, well, we never really said we loved each other. And it's like, what? And then he, they're talking like this, then he bails out of the plane.
He bails out.
This is when he says that, he bails out of the plane. So he notices that there are some people that are in trouble, and he helps them out. And he meets the editor of Rolling Stone magazine, John Winiger or something like that. But he spends the issue with him, also going over his origin, and some of his villains he's fought.
Oh, okay.
So he's hanging out at Rolling Stone's headquarters, going over his origin.
So he's being interviewed, sort of?
Sort of like being interviewed.
Yeah.
But for a 100th issue, nothing's really going on. until the end when you find the villain and he's at the end. So the battle that should take place in 100 is going to take place in 101. Because usually, back then, when a comic book actually did reach 100, back in the day when they actually got that far before they got canceled, you know. But anyway, they would lead up to 100 with some big storyline.
Yeah.
Well, this one didn't, so whatever. So 100, I thought it was a dud for a 100, even though it was only 20 center. But I didn't think it was great. I mean, for a regular issue, maybe, but for 100th issue, I didn't think it made the cut.
Yeah, you think when they get to certain issues that'll be a little bit of a landmark story of some sort.
Right, and there really wasn't. I mean, I don't think there was, unless you count Black Widow and Daredevil breaking up as a landmark,
a moment,
something that, first appearance of the breakup. I guess that's what it be called by Go Price. Yeah. But I think this was the last issue, of course, called Daredevil and Black Widow because she would have been an Avenger going back to New York City. So I guess this would probably be the last Daredevil and Black issue, as I'm sharing the title. Yeah. Anyway, I've drawn it out long enough. If you're a Daredevil collector, yeah, you're going to want it, but it's not a great 100th issue. So put that one away. I need it for my collection. I read it. It wasn't too bad, but it's there. So what's next on yours, Dave?
All right, next one on my list is XFactor 100. And in this issue, they actually do have some stuff going on. And it's following up a story that had been going on for a while. And it's written by J.M. DeMatteis and penciled by Jan Gersema. And inked by Al Milgrom. Always liked his inks. Thought he did a finishing job on a lot of stories. But we got a lot of, if you're familiar with the old XFactor stuff, they are battling. Who are they battling in here?
Who's the main core of the XFactor?
In this version?
Yes.
We have Havoc and Polaris and the big guy, Guido, and Multiple Man, and Jamie Maddox, Multiple Man, which the story here leads up to his death, because there's several, the Multiple Man, he has like 3 or 4 permanent versions of himself running around, and they all start taking on various personalities, and as they're battling through here, they whittle it down to one, and it looks like he ends up dying at the end here, which I guess if you read further on the stories, he comes back to life later or something. But anyway, it wasn't too bad of a story. And they had the big death, at the end. And can't think of the name of the villain. I can't figure out who it is. But some Egyptian mutant goddess thing or something. But anyway, story was, it's alright. And we had the big death thing, he's holding him dead, all dying and everything. So I give it if you're an XFactor collector, there's only 120 some issues of it. Or no, there's more than that now. There's 200 something.
Is it?
Yeah. But I think it picks up when Peter David started writing it. But anyway.
I think all books picked up with Peter David.
Yeah. So that's XFactor 100. It is okay.
Alrighty. Well, I guess we'll go to Iron Man 100. Written by Bill Mantlo and drawn by George Tuska. And that's another great team of Iron Man. Right there it is, 100. And this concludes the story while Iron Man is battling the Mandarin in China. And everyone thought the Mandarin was dead, was killed in issue 70. But somehow he was able to, since some peasant found his rings, he was able to regenerate himself through this peasant who was wearing his rings so he came back. And so it's a big, good Iron Man battle with the Mandarin. I'm not going to tell you who won. I'm not. You're going to read to see who won the big battle. But you have the great story. Great way to bring the Mandarin back. Everybody missed the Mandarin. And plus, so what's a... But this was a regular 30-cent comic book. It wasn't like a giant size or double size. This was during the inflation, almost to the inflation age of comics. Right now, this is still the Bronze Age at 30 cents. 35 cents starts the inflation age of comics. But it's a good story. A nice cover there of him breaking some iron. The 100 behind him. Highly recommend this story. Now remember, this story probably started, storyline probably started in issue 98, 97, and it concluded in 100. Good story. Whoops, bubble in the end zone. But I enjoy it. I recommend it. If you're an Iron Man fan, go get it. What's the next, Dave?
Alrighty, I have Alpha Flight 100. And this isn't too bad of a story. Alpha Flight's teaming up with the Avengers, and they have divided themselves up into two, or I think they were forcibly divided up by two teams. And so some of the Avengers are on Earth battling the villain on that end, and then another group of them's on another planet and battling the bad guys there. And so it was kind of fun watching Captain America and Sasquatch team up together and all that kind of stuff. And we have Galactus as the main villain. He's on the alien planet trying to devour that world, and so they recruit people from Earth to help defeat Galactus since they've done it before. And that's
So Galactus is in that issue.
yeah. So it's kind of neat seeing Quasar and Victory and Vindicator, sorry. Vindicator and Box and Hercules and all these guys taking on Galactus. So, and they end up managing to do it and saving the day, and it happens. The other team on Earth does their end, and so Galactus, he kind of gets screwed at both ends. But pretty good issue. Ends with the sacrifice of Guardian, which he originally died in issue number 12, and they somehow regenerated him and brought him back and came up with this really quirky storyline, which these aliens that they're helping save their planet had something to do with, and it wasn't really the Guardian. He was some sort of rebuilt cyborg version of the guy. It wasn't really him, but anyway, he ends up dying in that issue, so say Mr. Hudson is finally gone, I guess. But so not too bad of an issue. I can't find who wrote or drew it anywhere in here. I'm trying to look for some credits and I can't find it.
No credits.
So I can't find them. So anyway, we'll just move on. And the art's all right, and the story's pretty decent. So
I see. Yeah.
So what's your last issue you got there? What's the next issue you're going to talk about, Rick?
Well, the next one is Flash 100, written by Mark Waid. Mark Waid, I'm going to tell you, is probably one of the best Flash writers, and probably one of those runs you need to own. I think Flash started right. I think Mark Waid started writing this book in issue 64, 60 something. But it doesn't matter. I'll get you back to it later, but he's the best writer that you probably could have for Flash, and probably the best written comics ever. But anyway, here we go. This is Flash 100. All the speedsters are involved. You've got Jay Garrick, you've got Jesse, you've got Impulse, all of them. And even Flash's girlfriend, Linda Park, is trying to fight off the villain, which is Cobra. As you can tell, I can't know if you can tell, but it's kind of glittery.
Got a little shine to it.
A little shine to it. I think that was the shine age of comics. I think it was done in 1990. But anyway, it has all the speedsters in here. Jesse, Impulse, Jay Garrick, even Justice League right here, and they're all fighting Cobra. because all the cities are under attack. He's trying to vibrate them to death, and they're all trying to get the Cobra, and they can't find Flash. Flash is gone. So they all have to do this without the Flash, and they're all trying. And even his girlfriend, Linda Park, is trying to do her part fighting Cobra, who's the villain. And she gets in a couple of licks before she's knocked on her butt. But the whole issue, mostly, the Flash is gone. We're trying to find him. And what has happened is the Flash has gone all the way to the other side of the Speed Force. And has gotten new powers and has found out new things. And when he gets back, he's able to save the day because he's faster and is able to tap into the Speed Force better than before. So it's a good read. Once again, this storyline started somewhere in the 90s and worked its way up to 100. It's a great read, and I recommend Flash 100.
Alrighty.
Plus, the Justice League, like I said, Batman, Superman, they're all in here.
We've got the whole gang with
The whole
them,
gang's in here.
Alrighty. Okay, well, our last issue 100 we're going to talk about is Web of Spider-Man, number 100. Can you see how shiny that is? Yeah, see that?
Yeah, that was during the shiny age of comics, too.
Yeah, this is nice and shiny. It's got a nice green shiny thing on here. And anyway, and this introduces us to the Spider armor. Why does Spidey have armor? Well, he's battling, starting off with Dragon Man and Dreadnought and some other android guy, and so he decides he needs to power up a little bit so he can take on these villains. Mostly this is kind of insulation more than and protection from they got a new
Did he make the armor then?
Yeah.
Okay, so it's his own.
Yeah. And so he's battling these new enforcers which have, I don't know, the Eel and a couple other guys in here you never heard of. You probably never will again. So we won't really talk about them too much, but anyway, the main villain seems to be the Rose. He's kind of manipulating things in the background here. And we got some Night Watch action going on throughout the story. Then there's a, I guess you can call a bit of a backup story about Night Watch. And gives a little bit of his origin, which I don't think I really ever cared for that character too much. But anyway, the main story is not too bad, and it's got a cool shiny cover. And I'd recommend it if you collect the Web of Spider-Man. I think that ran of 120 some issues also, 29. Anyway.
But can you guess who the Rose is?
Yeah, do you remember who the Rose is? You'll have to read it and find out.
You have to read. Yeah, you have to go back to that era and read find out who the Rose is.
Well, yeah, he showed up in the Amazing Spider-Man there during all that.
He did, yes.
Right around the 240s and 50s and thereabouts, going through, and he was trying to take over the Kingpin's
very good,
empire
very good storyline right there with the Rose. When you find out who the Rose is, you're like, oh my gosh.
Yeah, so there is a reveal in here of who the Rose is. So.
Oh, is that the reveal issue?
Yeah.
Oh boy, then you got to get this one, folks.
So if you want to know who the Rose is, this is where the issue to get it.
That's right.
So anyway, so thanks for watching our 100th episode as we talk about issues 100s.
That's correct. So we'll catch you later.
Bye.
Good day.